All right, I've been talking to several friends of mine of varying political views, from your outright right wing, middle of the road libertarian, or non-libertarian, middle of the road moderates, to more classical but progressive leaning liberals, to even very authoritarian progressives or neoliberals, or whatever adjective you want to put on the description. And the topic I want to talk about is a solution to the whole healthcare debacle. Now, I'm no expert. Like I said, you can see my background and maybe some of the background noise. I'm just a truck driver, but it affords me a lot of time to listen to a lot of podcasting and a lot of ideas, and a lot of time to ponder and think on my own. And I've brainstormed up a potential solution to both sides of the argumentation regarding this issue to get healthcare to the masses. Now, a definition of terms, I think, is worthwhile being put in place here. Namely, when I say the term compromise, and my whole placement of the scheme that I've come up with is really a compromise from both sides in terms of what they argue for and what they want, the benefits, the costs, the whole deal. I kind of constructed this with the best intentions in mind for getting people health care as an investment to mitigate costly things later on in life, as well as the compassionate angle of not wanting people to suffer, but also being mindful to the fact that medical care is a resource, and it involves people and their skill and their hard work to get that skill, and they should make money providing a very good skill set, along with the fact that it is a very necessary thing for a given society, but not to the point to where it's almost, this is too strong of a word, almost to maybe even a rhetorical trick, but it's the best that I can come with, like to where it would almost seemingly, enslave the caregivers. But I admit that could be a misplaced word, nevertheless. So, me being a libertarian, I admire a lot of things that a true free market, not a crony capitalist system that America has now, in my opinion, but a true free market, and also utilize what many on the left would argue is necessary, which is a collective resource gathering for those that cannot get it on their own. And prefacing this with certain things that I've found out, I should preface this whole structure with in that one of the problems that with the current system is that physicians, and I have a friend that is a family practitioner, and he deals with this on every transaction that he does with his healthcare business, is that every insurance company does this, every one, some worse than others. And whereas, say, he offers a $100 block of healthcare service, right? Let's just keep it rounded off to that extent. So you go into the doctor for whatever, and his cost is $100, and that involves his pay, the light bill, the supplies there, paying the nurses, to paying the mortgage on the facility, X, Y, and Z, all the way down to the grain of pepper that his daughters put on their eggs in the morning when they eat breakfast. And so you walk in, you go for the service, and it's $100. So if you pay cash, it would be $100. However, when he submits it to insurance, generally they say, okay, that's $100. We're only going to pay $75 of that. And we'll give it to you in 2, sometimes 3 installments over the next 3 months. So what this forces him to do is to inflate the price so he covers his $100 base cost for that service at the time of use and for the month, because we all know here in America that electricity bills is every 30 days, payroll is every 2 weeks or every, week. So depending on the business, that can vary. But he has to inflate the price. So now, depending on how any business would compute it, he has to make this $100, what could have been just a $100 service block, now has to be $220, $150, $340. Who knows how one computes it. So they cover their bases inside that month because they have to, make up for essentially that loss of income for insurance companies and stuff like that to pay up, when everything would be golden if they would just pay the cash equivalent upon, or at least within a month, or upon the date of service. So that gets me to the insurance companies. And like with many things this complicated, that requires many different layers to talk about. So I'll start with a healthcare system that starts with the insurance companies, where it'll play to the strength of having the insurance companies compete for a customer base to contribute monies to them, for them to then provide coverage for an assortment of types of coverage based on what the customer chooses to have for themselves. And that the payment to a hospital, to a doctor, to any healthcare necessity is cash equivalency. You pay cash. No way around it. I'm on the fence if there should be a forcing of pre-existing conditions or not. However, I strongly have the conviction that in this scenario, the competition, the strict competition, will make up for that. If not, make pre-existing conditions almost be a normal thing, because that will get a lot of people in the door. Now that said, one of the things with insurance companies that is existing now that makes insurance pretty difficult to get a hold of for those that either don't have as much or have as much money, or the high level job that provides these benefits, is that insurance companies don't really have to compete with each other. They stay within a state. So you may only have a given amount of insurance companies within a state or a certain region of the country. And I propose that an insurance company in the state of Maine can offer insurance coverage to someone down in Florida or Southern California or Portland, Washington, or Oregon, Portland, Oregon. It's morning time, forgive me. Because the doctors don't care in that area, because they're getting their cash money for the services they provide. So as long as the insurance company pays up, why should they care if it's an approved insurance company or not? Now, there could be more to this. I can only talk with what I'm wrapping around in my head. But I would say put that in the situation, put that out there for that make the insurance companies have to compete with every other one out there in the country, because them having to compete benefits the end user, driving prices down while still maintaining, if not increasing, services. And the physicians and the doctors in the hospitals, they still get their cash money incentive. They're not having to hedge the bets on how much money is being given. So that doesn't, quote unquote, punish the physicians, and it still incentivizes them to be very good doctors and increase medical care, increase the value and the quality of medical care. Now, I'm not going to address the pharmaceutical companies. I don't know how that would apply to this, if at all. I'm selectively going to avoid that so we can try to keep this as simple as I can with all the, considering it's already kind of complicated with this conversation as far as the layers is concerned. So moving forward from that, still allow businesses to choose an insurance company to provide insurance coverage to their employees. Leave that as is, still allowing for the competition, allowing a company in Little Rock, Arkansas to choose an insurance company out of Nevada because they've given them a great deal and all kinds of coverage for whatever kind of low deductibles and all this, that, and the other. So where it gets into the individuals that don't have the means to buy healthcare coverage or have the cash flow to just go to see a doctor and just pay the figurative $100 when they need to, that's when it comes into the tax subsidization of those individuals. Now, before I get into paying these taxes out, I will also assert that a few things in my mind would be very helpful to free up monies to cover this in this way, is to completely remove Medicare and Medicaid in the drug war and drastically cut back our defense spending. Ideally, get rid of all the bases in other countries and just go to a very strong national defense. And that would drastically reduce the expenditure. To what amount, I don't know. But leave it in a very defense strategy rather than being out there trying to police the world as far as the monetary expense of doing so. In addition, I really smile upon removing foreign aid too and putting that money towards domestic aid. So how would we get medical care to the poor in my little world? Health savings accounts. Now, of course, there'd have to be a system set up of, qualification and how much one gets. That is certainly a valid discussion to have, and I won't put specific numbers in this argument because that kind of gets beyond my expertise. There's plenty of other qualified people to, come up with those numbers, but I'll kind of put it in figurative terms. So health savings accounts are a really good way to do both sides of what is argued for. One, getting healthcare to the poor, disadvantaged, as well as making an incentivization without objectification of these poor slash, whatever term you want to put on it, but people that can't go out and just buy healthcare on their own, as we understand it now. Because it incentivizes them to have to manage their money and to not be frivolous with it. So you would go and you get qualified and say for a family, let's say figuratively for a family of 4, you qualify for a $500 subsidy to an HSA, health savings account. Now, people say, well, to answer a couple questions that I'm thinking would be asked at this point, how would it be used? How would they go about using it? And to the right side, would they try to pull money out of it? Would they try to do something nefarious with it? Well, there's easy things to put in place to negate all of that and to answer those questions. And that I would advocate having health savings accounts be managed by credit unions instead of banks. To my knowledge, credit unions is pretty much owned by the people that are members of the union, not shareholders of the bank. To my knowledge, credit unions have an innate, interest in keeping the monies, in-house and keeping them available instead of putting them towards a lot of loans that may be defaulted on and thus driving up fees and costs. Whereas in a credit union, if all the money's still there, that can lower fees and costs while benefiting the members of the credit union. And this could start up a whole, even a health savings account credit union, business, thus driving competition, thus giving more benefits to the member holders, to where someone like myself, living a very decent middle class lifestyle, is on the same par and same benefit level as someone that is not employed, on disability, and is on tax subsidies for health care. So the money comes in, and it's as good as cash to your doctors, towards prescriptions, towards, all kinds of care. And you have loads of options. And of course, put in certain levels of educational information with people so they can be informed to optimal decisions to do with this resource. Meaning, one getting, say, the figurative $500 a month, they can choose between going out and purchasing an insurance plan, what level of insurance they want to get. If they want to get all the, ins and outs of super amount of insurance coverage, it's going to eat into your HSA. But you got insurance coverage, and you'll pay your deductibles, and you'll line out all the coverage that you get and at what costs and blah, 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 blah. I'm pretty confident that with a little bit of education, even someone that is halfway literate, which is very uncommon in this country, it's still out there, but it's not as common as one would think, but still smart enough, if at least told and instructed vocally through YouTube. We can make YouTube videos about it, that they can grasp and understand and utilize the resource so their health can be managed better, thus mitigating large costs later on. I see this as a financial investment rather as a charitable expense at someone else's cost. Yes, it's coming at a cost, but it's somewhat worthwhile. Or they can just not buy any insurance at all and just bank the money. Which gets me to another part. The more money someone saves in their HSA, the credit unions can offer percentage returns on the money that stays in there. And of course, the percentages goes right back into the individual's HSA. So if someone saves up, has $1,000, they get a certain percentage every month that goes back into their HSA, which grows the HSA. And much like a mutual stock fund or a Roth IRA. Now, the money can be taken out at any time. It's as good as cash, and can be transferred to their children when their children turn 18. I see that as a good benefit. So if two parents that are working poor or just receiving nothing but tax subsidies their entire time of health care, their children turn 18 and are about to either go to college themselves, they've done the good thing, or just hitting the workforce, and they're going to be working at McDonald's. And the parents can say, hey, we're going to give you, $2,500 out of our HSA so you have a good start. I see transferring to family members with no penalties as a very good benefit with this plan, because the money can't be spent outside of anything other than healthcare. And I'm predicting a question about, birth control. You know what? Health insurance companies will compete to want to cover your birth control, if not for medical necessities. If you just want to get, be able to not get pregnant at your convenience. However, I would also argue, I think, putting birth control over the counter, say for, when you need it outside of birth control purposes, that'll be covered for insurance, but just make it over the counter like buying condoms. The price will go down. You can get Equate Walmart brand birth control that's just as effective as the stuff that's 5, 6, 20 times as much, name brand. But under this plan, let an insurance company say, hey, we'll cover your birth control, and some won't. You choose the one that will or won't, depending on your interest. Let the free market compete for your patronage. Allow for charitable transfers, and of course, to incentivize minimalization of that, have a small fee, say maybe 10% of the amount selected to transfer to a perfect stranger, to go back into the general fund that funds all the other subsidies. So it all stays in the system. Now, some would argue that there could be nefarious uses of the funds and things like that, but I would say no more than what's existing now with our current welfare state. And there are things that can be done to mitigate those abuses of this resource. So in a situation of a catastrophic health problem, so someone has a little bit of insurance and they have $10,000 in their HSA, and they have a coronary, a massive heart attack, open heart surgery, and let's just say, adding it all together with the competition, the cash value, what would now be a figurative $250,000 to say, let's just say half that, $125,000. Well, your insurance covers X, Y, and Z of that, depending on the plan you pick. And instead of zapping all of your HSA, you can choose to give half of it. And because it's tax subsidized, there can be a contract with the government that the hospital gets a guaranteed cash payment per month out of your regimented amount that you are qualified to get until the debt is paid. So the hospital has a guaranteed financial, security in making sure that their services are covered and paid for, so they don't have to hedge the numbers like they did before. It's guaranteed. It's rock solid. A lot like, tax guaranteed loans. But it's very regimented and structured, so everybody's getting the shaft equally, is the best way to put it, where both sides are gritting their teeth and crossing their arms over what they're not getting. And that, in my opinion, is a true compromise. That's what I can think of right now. I can appreciate those friends of mine that were for a single payer government run, system to people wanting it the way before. But I go all the way back to in the early 1900s to where you have what's called friendly associations. And I'll put the link in the description to an article that Stefan I read, written by a guy back in 1993, that talked about how healthcare used to be run differently. And in the end, a working poor individual got a year's worth of healthcare coverage, and that was like doctor's visits all the way down to disability, for a day's wage for a year of coverage, because of the drastic competition and because government wasn't so overtly involved with it. Now, the way Stefan reads it is he puts a lot of, affectations to it and dramatization, but thankfully he's reading off of an article, and it's definitely worth the listen to. Between that and the other compromises that I mentioned before, I see this as a very good plan. Have your comments below. Tell me what you think. And remember, flame responsibly.